Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong. My name is Mark Ellis, and I'll just be honest with you. I'm always up front. We're down a co-host. Jacqueline Coley, my esteemed, the real star of the show, is unavailable today. It's getting into the thick of award season, and Jacqueline not only covers the award shows for Rotten Tomatoes, she also goes to all the screenings. She goes to all the after parties, but I want to stress this to y'all. She's not doing the after parties like I would do the after parties, where I just make friends with a bartender and talk about whether the Lakers can last for 82 games. She's actually hobnobbing. She's getting information. She's getting to see who has the inside track to win all these great awards. So Jacqueline is hard at work, and so I'm going to be steering the ship, but I am not alone today as we talk about the Star Wars show. Yeah, we've done the movies here, a bunch of them. We've done some sequels, some prequels. We know the classic trilogy lives atop Mount Olympus forevermore. But now, I don't know if y'all heard this, Star Wars does TV, streaming, and The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, pretty darn fresh. The Mandalorian Season 1 is currently at 93% certified fresh. And get this, Season 2, it one-upped its older brother by 1 percentage point, 94% certified fresh for Season 2 right now on the Tomatometer. And to celebrate The Mandalorian, or possibly to have some hot takes, we have not one, but two guests joining us today. They're both from the hit show ForceCenter. There's a lot of podcasts about Star Wars out there. I've chimed in on a few of them in my day, but ForceCenter has just built such a great fan base, and it is one of the most popular Star Wars shows in the galaxy. We've had Joseph Scrimshaw on, and he talked about The Phantom Menace, and now we welcome in the two other hosts of ForceCenter. First up is the one, the only actor, performer, host, contributor to StarWars.com, as well as her ForceCenter endeavors. It is Jen Landa. Jen, hello, and welcome to Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat all things Star Wars. Mandalorian specific.
Mandalorian specific for sure, but we could go into any corner of the galaxy you feel like. And I have a feeling that might be the case because we're also bringing in your cohort from ForceCenter. He is also the man who literally wrote the book, or at least a book on Star Wars, Why We Love Star Wars. And he is also a very funny comedian that you can catch performing alongside me in Washington, D.C., December 16th through the 19th. Tickets at markellis.live. But Ken Napzok, I did not bring you on just to plug the shows.
No, look, I've been saying Mark Ellis is wrong my whole life, so I'm happy to be here. And I know I look like I just took a break from driving cabs with Danny DeVito and Andy Kaufman, but happy to be here with you, all of you here today.
I did love you in the early 80s hit show Taxi, which I caught on Nick at Night years later. So, yeah, we are talking about The Mandalorian, and we have two Star Wars experts here joining us. So I'm just going to put the question, Ken, I'm going to kick off with you, and then we're going to go to Jen. Is Rotten Tomatoes wrong about the Mandalorian seasons? Again, 93 and 94% certified fresh.
No, I think Rotten Tomatoes is right, and specifically that low 90s range. I love leaving a little room for discussion, a little room for your personal interpretations. A good solid A- is a passing grade, and I think it's right.
It's a passing grade. It's way above my standard, even though somehow I stumbled into Wake Forest University. Jen, I used to have a teacher that said she didn't give any 100% to any student, regardless if they aced the test, because there's always room for improvement. So the high score you could get is 99%. How do you feel about the 93 and 94% for seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian? Is Rotten Tomatoes right or wrong?
I would say mostly right. I might go a little bit higher. I do have a bone to pick with a score of one specific episode, but overall, I think Rotten Tomatoes got it just right.
Ooh, you came to play. This is going to be fun. This is going to get good. I guess it's my job, because Jack was not here, to give you a synopsis of The Mandalorian. So you got this cute Muppet baby, right? Well, actually, let's step back further and take a look at this bounty hunter that is within this cult religion, whatever you want to call it, of the Mandalorian. And so they wear their armor proudly, they wear their helmets, and they never take their helmets off, ever, ever, ever. Nobody ever sees them without that helmet. And this whole storyline takes place about 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which we all know is the greatest film in the history of Star Wars, or any movie for that matter. And so Luke, Leia, and Han, they're off doing their own thing. And this is following the exploits of one particular bounty hunter that we come to know as the Mandalorian, who has all these adventures, sometimes misadventures, but one particular mission has him intrigued in a way that he didn't know he could get, and emotionally attached in a way he didn't know he could get, because this mission is to bring this child to the Empire. And it's a baby version of Yoda. It's not Yoda. It's just a baby Yoda of the same race that we find out is named Grogu. And so through the adventures of The Mandalorian in seasons 1 and 2, we meet a lot of zany characters, a whole host of favorites and fan debate. And we end up, well, I guess I can spoil the ending of season 2 for you because my brother and I watched it at the same time. We saw an X-Wing fly in, and who comes to rescue the child that the bounty hunter has been painstakingly taking care of, like I take care of Molly the Wonder Dog for 2 seasons? None other than Luke freaking Skywalker himself. And more importantly, the spunkiest droid in the galaxy, R2-D2, the one who saved everybody multiple times, shows up. They take Grogu off, and now we await what's going to happen in the next chapters of The Mandalorian. I thought that was a pretty good job of keeping it quick, keeping it short. Producer Lucy, was that okay with you? I get the thumbs up from Lucy. So we are going to talk about which season we think is better. So there is going to be some dividing line. It's not just going to be a Star Wars love fest. We can talk about which season we think should be higher rated on the Tomatometer, some bones to pick, and the things that we love the most about The Mandalorian. So you're going to hear a lot more from Jen, Ken, and myself. And as for me, I think Rotten Tomatoes is pretty dead on with its ratings of 93 and 94%. I could see it getting a little lower, but I want to keep it in the 90s if for no other reason, just because, again, this thing has done what so many people have doubted could ever be done, and that is unite the current fan base known as Star Wars, mostly into one loving mass. So with that, we now turn it over to Tim Ryan, our review curation manager here at Rotten Tomatoes, for our segment that tells us what the critics were saying when The Mandalorian was released and the episodes therein. It's 2 minutes with Tim time.
2 minutes with Tim.
It's pretty safe to say that there's a firm consensus around The Mandalorian. Everybody loves Baby Yoda, everybody loves Werner Herzog, and critics and audiences are in almost perfect harmony about the show's overall quality. The series as a whole is at 93%. That number takes into account reviews for the seasons as well as the individual numbers, and there are many more reviews for individual episodes. On a season level, The Mandalorian Season 1 is certified fresh at 93% on the Tomatometer with 36 reviews, and it has a 92% audience score. On a season level, The Mandalorian Season 2 is certified fresh at 94% on the Tomatometer with 27 reviews, and it has a 90% audience score. Almost every episode has a Tomatometer in the 80s or 90s, though the worst reviewed episode is Season 1, Episode 5, The Gunslinger, which is at 73%. So what did the critics have to say? In a fresh review for the first season, Marianne Johansson of Flick Philosopher wrote, "Here's the future of Star Wars. Not one mired in the narrow threads of the movie's mythology, but a story that acknowledges that there is a whole big, complicated, wonderful galaxy to explore." In a fresh review from Season 2, Roanne Nahar of the Hindustan Times wrote, "It's Star Wars in its purest form. Spare but sprawling, elegantly intimate yet epic in scope. Appointment TV at its best." So that's The Mandalorian. Jacqueline, Mark, can I offer you a libation to celebrate the closing of our shared narrative? Back to you, folks.
Well, thank you, Tim. I imagine Jacqueline might be at some super exclusive VIP event where she's enjoying a libation. Currently, for me, it's just the ice water with lemon because it's not noon yet. So let's get into TV talk. Let's just transition. Brian, do we have different music for TV talk, or is it just this? Kind of like a certain NFL broadcasting network that just uses their same music for baseball as well. Now it's time to talk about all things Mandalorian. Jen, I want to start with you, and I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to throw a fastball right down the middle here. Where does The Mandalorian, as a collective unit, so seasons 1 and 2, where does that rank for you in all of Star Wars entertainment options? So where does it, like, do you have it somewhere on the ladder of your favorite movies? Where would it rank for you?
For me personally, it would rank right up there with the original trilogy. I'm going to say it. Partially because of the nostalgia factor and what that represented that first season when we all got to see Grogu, Baby Yoda for the first time. And like you talked about, Mark, how it united the fan base. It was so special, and it reminded me of when I was a kid enjoying Star Wars. So it ranks pretty darn high, although I do love the sequel trilogy as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I love them all. And Ken, you and I have had many conversations about this. You knew the reveal already that there was going to be this Baby Yoda character. And then you got to watch me and our dear friend Christian Rubalcaba watch that for the first time. That must have been fun for you.
Absolutely fun. Absolutely fun to watch that kind of do what Jen just talked about there. Get people to, obviously a lot of feelings around a lot of Star Wars. Always has been, huh? There's still people grumpy about Empire Strikes Back. Let's be honest. So to have it do what Jen just said it did. It did unite because an overload of cuteness, but also more importantly, a big bundle of purpose with that character.
Yeah, the purpose, there's substance behind the style with who we came to know as Grogu. So, Ken, where does The Mandalorian as a whole rank for you in Star Wars canon?
Well, I'm always going to cheat with an answer. There's no bad Star Wars for me, but this it's pretty high. And I'm someone who takes something from all trilogies. As you know, Mark, we've had many discussions in the bars about this around the world. I put Mandalorian really high up there, especially season 1. But I love a lot of things in season 2. Can't wait to talk about, especially all the characters that roll up there. But I do put it up there, and that actually happened on more of a repeat viewing for me. Initially, season 1 didn't grab me as much as it did other folks, but then by the end of it, yeah, I was on board.
Okay, see, I had the same experience with season 2, where initially it wasn't grabbing me as much as season 1 did. So I am still wrestling, and I can be molded one way or the other by you and Jen here. So Ken, I'm going to piggyback it right over to you. Why is season 1 of The Mandalorian better than season 2? There's no bad Star Wars. Why is season 1 superior?
Season 2 did what it needed to do and what I wanted it to do, which is start to expand the story, expand the universe, bring in some wonderful characters, Bo-Katan and Fennec Shand kind of returning, Ahsoka, all those things. It made the story bigger. And some people maybe, that can rub them wrong way if it's too much. But those characters are there to serve the story right that we need in season 2. But season 1, I'm going to probably say this a lot. I apologize. It is a collection of beautiful Star Wars tone poems. And it is the whole theme of season 1 is about growth, personal change, adaptions, and reprogramming yourself. And also, it's a big thing about parenting, too. I'm not a parent. Jen can speak to that better than I can. But I think the themes in season 1 are so powerful. And, when themes in Star Wars start popping out of the screen, that's when I get excited, Mark.
Jen, are you on Team Ken and Producy Lucy? Do you think season 1's better than season 2, or are you more of a season 2 supporter?
Initially, my thoughts were I loved season 1. I thought that doing what they did, making Star Wars so fun. And like you're saying, Ken, they were so many beautiful episodes, visually, emotionally. But with season 2, I keep coming back to it. And I felt the same way as you did, Mark. Initially, I was like, I don't know how I feel about season 2. It didn't quite grab me the way that I had hoped. So I went back and I rewatched it. There are some great, fun moments. It kind of felt like they just were letting loose. All the creators, they've already done it. The directors, the writers, they'd already done it in season 1. For season 2, they knew where they needed to go. You had characters like Boba Fett, who I've never been a Boba Fett fan. I love him now. What happened? How did they do that? They brought these legacy characters and they made, that's a huge accomplishment to take such recognizable, beloved characters and make us love them even more on screen.
Yeah, let's unpack some of this Boba Fett stuff, too, because Boba Fett getting his own book, and don't worry, kids, you don't have to read it. You can just watch it. But we'll talk about our anticipation for that a little later. But as far as the character of Boba Fett, Jen, I was sort of always on the same page as you, where, look, the coolest look in the galaxy, okay? Gets invited to every Met Gala, but you didn't see a lot of him, and thus I didn't really see a whole lot of purpose. I didn't understand, other than just the mystery of who this character is, why Boba Fett was people's favorite Star Wars character. I will say it was cool to see that reveal at the end of the first episode of season 2, where you're like, oh my God, he got out of the Sarlacc pit. It's been confirmed. But I was never the biggest Boba Fett fan either. But season 2 seems to have changed that tone for you.
Absolutely. We got to know Boba Fett in the Clone Wars, obviously. But for me, as an original trilogy fan, it was kind of almost like a joke. He was just this cool, mysterious character that all the fans loved. And yeah, he has somehow escaped from the Sarlacc pit. Haha. Yeah, right. So his performance in season 2, though, it brought the depth. We saw the pain that he's gone through and the life that he has lived. And he is bad ass, but there is something going on internally. He's not just this, this warrior. He's got some depth to him. And that made me really excited to see where they're going to take the character next.
Well, it's interesting, Ken, because if we're talking specific favorite episodes, my favorite episode from season 2 would be one of the ones that does showcase Boba Fett and this new role of sort of like Liam Neeson in Taken, that he's, I got a special set of skills and I guess I'm going to have to use them again. I'm not in the best of shape, but the armor still fits barely. Let's put it on and let's go do some fighting. The Robert Rodriguez episode that he directed from season 2 is one of my all-time favorites now, because I think it's called The Tragedy. I believe it's chapter 14, and we just get to see our guy Boba Fett back in action. Where do you stand on season 2, and maybe what would be your favorite episode from there? Would it be The Tragedy? Would it be following Boba Fett even more so than Mando or Grogu?
It is. That's up there, number one, because I've hiked up there, right off the 118 freeway in Simi Valley. So now I can go out there and pretend to be Boba Fett. I like the one with the big Bill Burr monologue there a little bit later on that a lot of people love. But I do love this episode, and it's interesting because all three of us talking here are let's be honest, we're original trilogy era, which means that was our entry point into Star Wars, and we all kind of share that same feeling of like, Boba Fett, great design, one of the all-time classic designs, but I didn't gravitate towards him much growing up. But what I think they've succeeded on that episode is Jen touched upon it, is a little bit of the identity, right? He's a clone, but not a clone. His father was not a Mandalorian, but was a Mandalorian by creed. I'm the greatest bounty hunter of the galaxy, but is that who I am now that I've survived this? And that episode confirms his lust for violence, revenge, a kid who watched his father killed by a Jedi, but where does he want to take that? And I was surprised and pleasantly surprised by what they were able to do with that episode, while also still maintaining that Boba Fett coolness. And for me, middle-aged Boba Fett now, still hitting the gym, but still struggling to maintain with the nice cloak and the armor you used to have back in high school. Love that look. Love that feel for Boba Fett.
Dad bod Boba Fett is what we'll call him. So if you harbor all of this, these nice nostalgic sentiments, getting to see Boba Fett actually live up to the promise that so many fans had since we first met him at a job interview in The Empire Strikes Back. I still would have hired Bosk for the mission, but that's just my personal take. What is it about season 1? And maybe what's the episode for Ken Napzok that says, boom, right there, that's why season 1 is superior?
I didn't know what to expect from Mandalorian. I'm someone who doesn't want my Star Wars dark and gritty too much. I don't want my Star Wars to be just power fantasies. And episode 1 wasn't that, but a lot of the hype, a lot of the feeling was finally we get a dude that's just going to start killing people in Star Wars. And I found myself resistant to that. So that episode 2 pops up. And it is, like I said before, I'll say it hopefully the last time, it is this beautiful tone poem and reflection on who you are, who you were, how can you find your personal identity. Everything with Quill is about how do you break down and rebuild who you are. And Mandalorian, who is this guy that comes from a certain culture, certain upbringing, who solves things with violence, who solves things by powering through to get his way, cannot do that. He cannot use those skills and things he knows to solve the problem here. He has to look at it in a new way. And I was like, oh my God. Plus, it was funny. Off-world Jawas saying, Suga, Suga, and learning that the Jawas have a patio on the top of the sandcrawler for sunbathing. Loved everything about that episode after I kind of reflected on it. And that kind of set the tone for me going forward with season 1.
Jen, I so subscribe to really both what you and Ken have echoed. When I saw The Mandalorian for the very first time, that first episode of season 1, I felt all of those nostalgic tones that also Lucy was talking about, where it was the same feeling I had, to be honest, when The Force Awakens came on, and maybe even a trailer for Force Awakens, where it felt like this lived-in world, and it even, you felt the desperation of just a township like you got to see shades of in Rogue One. And that was what drew me into it, that we're going to be telling these quiet, more Western style stories. And from Jon Favreau's, own lips to God's ears, that's what he was trying to do, is make this Western samurai in the spirit of what George Lucas had intended for the original Star Wars. So when you think back to your season 1 viewing experience, hopefully it was a little less travel oriented and chaotic than what Ken went through. What's the season 1 tome, so to speak, that really does it for you, that you say, that's why I love this show?
I love it because it plays on 2 levels. If you're a casual fan, if you don't know a lot about Star Wars, you can still enjoy it, right? It's just great to watch. You can get immersed in the story. But for fans that are more hardcore and want to dig deeper, you can do that too. You can read about the books. You can go back to old canon. It's all connected. And part of that, I think, is from the collaboration between Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. You have the fun, kind of childlike playfulness that Jon Favreau is bringing to this, of just being like this fan who's wanted to tell these stories since he was a kid. And you have Dave Filoni, who's also a wonderful storyteller, but who's bringing that knowledge from George and all of the canon and all of that rich backstory from these characters. And you put them together, and that's what I think makes it such a likable show across all fans. I mean, so much of Star Wars is so divisive, but everyone can find something within The Mandalorian that they can get behind, whether it's Baby Yoda or Cobb Vanth or whoever, right? There's creatures, there's lots of aliens, different species, crazy monsters. These are the things that Star Wars fans love and have been waiting for. Let's keep our Star Wars weird. And I think that it does that so well.
Yeah, and the other thing that it did, kicking off the entire show, was that it never felt desperate for your attention. Like it never felt the need to throw hey guys, Star Wars is back. Look at all these characters that you remember. It really took its time and pacing with that. So it wasn't until episode 3, I want to say, the Deborah Chow directed episode, where we got to see the Mandalorian really show his action chops and really show, like, this is what I can, if you paint me into a corner, I am a cat that's going to strike with vengeance. It was thrilling to watch. I think Chow did such a great job piloting that episode, and the way that the action was shot towards the end. I think it's called The Sin is chapter 3 of The Mandalorian. And that was the one that locked me in. I was like, okay, I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the different adventures. These are all kind of work like mini serials in a way. Any other episodes from either one of you, starting with you, Ken, that you feel like really highlight what you enjoy about The Mandalorian?
I will go back to chapter 15, which is The Believer. This is, and no coincidence for me that Rick Famuyiwa directed both these ones. I want him to tell more Star Wars stories and direct more Star Wars stories. And this is the Bill Burr episode, right? Mark, you should do a joke about Boston accents in space. It would work really well for you. And what I love about it is it's this commentary on belief, commentary on choice. And Star Wars is very much at its core about light versus dark, but it's really, that's hope versus fear, and going towards the light because the light is there, and the choices that lead you to that. And this Bill Burr character who we first met, who's a recovered Imperial sharpshooter, who's in the underworld, who kind of doesn't care. He's above it all, and he finds a reason to believe and finds a reason to back a cause. That's a pretty powerful statement from Star Wars, and I just absolutely everything about that Inglourious Bastard style dinner scene there, or break room scene, is some of the best Star Wars I think that's been in a few years, and a lot of people reacted to that because of that.
See, boys, everybody thinks they want freedom. But what they really want is order. And when they realize that, they're gonna welcome us back with open arms. To the Empire.
Jen, if you think about the episode that sort of, it gives us the culmination of where we are now, because you love season 2 so much, and you think about that final, I believe Dave Filoni directed it, where, again, we got this child, we realized that maybe it's Grogu has outgrown our ability to take care of said creature, and then an X-Wing shows up.
It was a risk, right? There's a lot of weight to bringing Luke Skywalker back. And the first time I watched it, I was so focused on like the technology and, how is, the de-aging process and whatever. So I was taken out a little bit. But when I went back and I watched it again, that was when I really understood the weight and the magnitude of it. And I will have to say, I did kind of compare it to Darth Vader's entrance in Rogue One a little bit, right? It's almost like a mirror image of that, the light side version, if you will. But yeah, it's just, that's what I love about the show, is they're like, we're going to show you Luke Skywalker. And fans, our minds just constantly are getting blown. Oh my gosh, Boba Fett. So yeah, that was very exciting to watch.
It's a very interesting point you bring up because it was a big risk, but it's almost like we didn't notice what the risk was in retrospect because it's like watching Simone Biles do a gymnastics stunt where, of course, she's going to stick the landing. But if that's me up there, it's not going to end well. And so you have to, there's so much care that gets put into it. And then it wasn't until months later that I found out that, that was actually, part of that was Mark Hamill just being de-aged. And I'm like, I'm just here for the stories, I guess, because I don't know what's real, what's fake anymore. But that was a pretty good way to end a season.
It was a really good way to end the season, and I too, the first night I had that like, is that his head? Wait, what am I watching? and sometimes Star Wars takes these big leaps with technology, and that's going to be there might be a false step here and there, but I think overall, like you said, it's the feeling in the moment, and it was the right time for that character to show up. I love Jen pointing out the mirror image. That's the point of it. You got one hallway scene, which is where all the power and rage in the world won't get you what you want, and the other is this peace and purpose and knowledge and defense and answering a call of help will lead you to what you need, and that was really powerful to me. And it was Luke, and come on, you and I, Jen, we all three had that Kenner action figure in the 80s, and we'd look at that and want to see that stuff, and it served that purpose as well. Star Wars has that balance between the deep and the important and the purposeful, and oh my God, did you see that? And that really kind of wrapped it all up there.
Ken, let's kick it off with you here. If you can highlight the Mandalorian if you want, so you can pick another character. Who is that character in The Mandalorian that really grabbed you? Or maybe a character that you say, maybe we could have gone a different way with this?
For me, I love Quill. As you can tell by those who can see me, my grizzly old grumpy beard, like I love grizzled weirdos in Star Wars, and it's something Jed and I have discussed at length with Joseph Scribshaw on ForceCenter. We love the grizzled old weirdos. Pelimoto's kind of a grizzled old weirdo in her own way, and seeing Amy Sedaris in Star Wars was fun for an old sketch comedy fan like myself. But Quill, absolutely, just what he represented, the punch to the heart of his passing, and I love everything with him. And I just was watching the episode 2, The Child, again before we got on the air, and I just love that character. I love what they did with that character and the purpose behind it. And I have spoken. That was the early hit that was the Eat My Shorts man of the quotable Mandalorian. I think it's been forgotten now by other quotes, but I have spoken is still one of the best.
Jen, it could be Grief, it could be Mando, it could be somebody else we haven't thought about yet. Your favorite character in The Mandalorian is who and why?
I mean, come on. It's got to be Grogu.
There it is.
Not just because he's freaking adorable, but because they got it so right of what having a toddler is like. It just is like he's grabbing the little ball, gonna put it in his mouth. It's just just really, for me, it's like the first time seeing that parental relationship in Star Wars in a very real way, in a very sweet way. And he's just that puppet. Can you imagine being on set with that puppet? I wouldn't be able to contain myself. But just everything, the magic behind him, and also, the puppeteering and the story, it all comes together to create this really beautiful character that has rightfully captured the hearts of fans old and young, like my 2-year-old, who is obsessed with him. So yeah.
And it was fun to watch producer Lucy just nod in agreement when you said it's like the actual experience of trying to raise a toddler. As Ken and I can somewhat relate to, where we just try to keep the wrong piece of chocolate out of our dog's mouths. But I mean, I think about, you talk about the risk with bringing Luke Skywalker into the fold. It was a monumental risk to have a baby, because correct me if I'm wrong, does the entire show fail if we don't buy into Baby Yoda? Because it was introduced, and just because of the modern world in which we live in, my first thought when I saw Baby Yoda in that DC hotel is, I can't believe this wasn't spoiled months before the show came out. I cannot believe that somehow they were able to keep this creature under wraps from all of us rabid Star Wars fans who will screenshot overhead pictures of a set and try to zoom in. We did not know this was going to happen. And even better yet, it got over the bar. It can, in wrestling terms, Baby Yoda got over with us. How big of a clutch play was that for Baby Yoda to work right out of the gate?
Look, you're absolutely right. I mean, the fact that, you got people getting jobs and camping out in parking structures next to some of the sets just to get photos for their websites, how this was kept relatively secret. There was only a little bit of rumblings right before the show came out, and even then it was like, what are you talking about? That just showed that everyone on that crew, everyone involved in that show believed in this, and it was a giant risk. Not unlike that risk when, in the late 70s, George said, we're going to do another one, and I'm going to take the most popular movie in history, and I'm going to make the sequel work or fail based on a puppet and a murky pool. And that worked. That's part of Star Wars tradition. That's part of what George established, and I think Grogu absolutely just slid right into that role so perfectly. And again, yeah, you're right. That second episode, if you don't believe that he is staring at an injured Mando and wants to heal him and can climb out of his pod, if you don't believe any of that, it might have fallen flat. It absolutely might have fallen flat. It might have worked like an episode of Muppet Babies for you and I. I don't know.
Now that we start talking about some of the characters, season 2 is winning me over again. Because I'm thinking about all of the great representation that we got with folks like Ming-Na Wen's Fennec. Was so great to see her in action. And then you also got another one of those just fans clamoring for decades about seeing this character in a different way, where we got Rosario Dawson playing Ahsoka Tano. So there's just a whole lot going on and matriculating season 2. Jed, I think that's why I love that season so much, is that those characters prove that we're not just resting on the laurels of season 1 with a cool looking bounty hunter and an adorable child.
Absolutely. I mean, Ming-Na Wen, what can she not do? When I watched that episode with her and Boba Fett, and she's, jumping, and she's a total mercenary, she's a deadly assassin. She's very cool. She's very calm, and she's fantastic and so exciting to watch. Seeing Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan live action, I was so thankful that they were able to bring her on screen. I mean, she's a phenomenal actress, Battlestar Galactica. So being able to see her character come to life was really thrilling. And yes, Ahsoka Tano, that was a challenge for me, because I love Ashley Eckstein. Mm-hmm. But I thought Rosario Dawson did a fantastic job, and Dave Filoni directed that episode, and it just made me feel warm and cozy, just kind of seeing all of Star Wars come together like that, knowing that Ahsoka was such a beloved character for him, and bringing her story to life was really exciting to watch.
Yeah, Ken, you want to piggyback off that, just being a lifelong Star Wars fan that you, like Jen, are, where we know Ashley Eckstein is the voice of Ahsoka Tano. We also know her much lesser-known husband happens to be a World Series hero. But if you take your anticipation for an Ahsoka reveal, did you smell it coming? Had you read something? Or was that maybe as big of a surprise as seeing Grogu for the first time?
I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt in my conspiracy-based mind here that they intentionally let some of the casting leaks out so they could hide Luke Skywalker at the end. It's kind of one of the thoughts I have. Like, cool, you hear some crumbs? Cool, we got this over here. I ended up really loving it. Ahsoka Tano, when I was part of that generation that was like, what's this little, like, sarcastic, snippy little, and then to, like, she's like a top 5 character for me, and love everything she brings to the table as a character. So it was a big challenge. It's a big challenge. Jen's not wrong at all. There's a lot of fans of Ahsoka Tano who have taken such great inspiration from that character, but more specifically, taken inspiration from the way Ashley Eckstein has represented that character both in and out of the recording booth. So it was a challenge, but I think I trust Dave Filoni in that regard. He's very protective of Ahsoka Tano, the character. He stands outside with a shotgun and pitchfork saying no one's coming near this character but me. And again, it's easy to look at season 2 and say it's a roll call of other characters and things we know, and I know that, the old Memba Berries thing. And that's not the case in season 2. Every character that shows up serves its purpose for the story of Mandalorian and his growth, Din Djarin's growth. It includes Bo-Katan. But at the same time, you're starting to get behind their story. Bo-Katan struggling for power that she maybe had before, lost, and power that Din Djarin doesn't wants to give away, but he can't. Fennec Shan, and now her connection to Boba Fett. And can we also just celebrate that Boba Fett will be starring and led by 2 wonderful actors in their late 50s? Yes, I love seeing that kind of stuff as more gravy shows up in my beard. So yeah, season 2 did succeed in that regard, and at the end of the day, they won me over with Ahsoka. I like Jad was a little dubious.
Jen, what is it about Mandalorian that maybe didn't rub you the right way? Was there something that you said, oh, well, we misfired with that, we could have done this better?
I'll tell you what, I really wanted to see more of Pedro Pascal's face. I know that the Mandalorian cannot take off his helmet. I know that that's part of the story. But when you hire this phenomenal actor who is so great with the looks that he gives, I mean, Game of Thrones, right? Like, how could, I have a hard time with that. So I'm glad that we got to see his face in that Bill Burr episode, which was wonderful. But I want to see more of it. Let the man act with his face.
It's a great thing. And a lot of it might have been the season 1 stuff about how maybe the availability of Pedro. I'm not even going to go into rumors, but shout out to Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder who were in that suit for most of season 1 and 2 there, doing great stuff. But Pedro's such a good actor. Everything in his voice, everything about it. That episode, Jen, you're so right when he takes his helmet off and the acting. I hope we see more of that there. But again, there's a challenge coming to him. He has learned through Bo-Katan that he was kind of raised by an extreme cultist, the Armorer. It's like Shyamalan's The Village, where they're from. They're like, no, don't go outside unless you need medicine. You can't take your mask off. Bo-Katan's like, oh yeah, no, that's not the case. They're going to have to pick that up, and I hope they do.
Okay, that's very, very interesting way to leave off this conversation. I will say, Pedro Pascal, what he brought, even with his brief screen time with his actual face. I'll tell you, when I wanted him to take his helmet off, I don't know about y'all, one of the most intense love, albeit quick, relationships in season 1, I wanted him to get it on. The offer was there. They were both ready to go. He was this close to ripping his helmet off and just having some fun for once in your bounty hunter existence. I wanted to see it happen. It would have been too early in retrospect, but I wanted to see it happen. Am I so bad for saying that?
No, I thought it was going to happen. I was like, she's either going to kiss his helmet, like caress it and really go for it, or he's just going to take it off. And I thought, this is the moment. I think I went like that. I gasped. And then I went, oh, nothing happened.
Any bones to pick with Mandalorian for you before we close up shop on this segment?
I know Jen very well as a Star Wars pundit and fan. I'm surprised she didn't answer that we haven't yet gone back to Endor and seen Ewoks in Mandalorian. I definitely want to see that.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
For me, it's interesting. I love it. And I'm so, often get accused of being too positive Star Wars only because I'm finding what's in there for me to love and to inspire me. I continue to do that. Mandalorian challenged me a few times with even the great risks of tech that they took. I'm obsessed with the volume, both in its potential, but also how it doesn't look cinematic to me sometimes. And sometimes in season 1, I had to work through this man, I just would rather go, the Aki Festival, the Ancestors and Rise of Skywalker is one of my favorite sequences because it's just so big and it's all around me, and I feel the joy that Rey feels in that scene. I want to live in that moment, and here we are, we're in a soundstage down on Manhattan Beach, and I can kind of tell sometimes that's personal for me to get over. And as the tech got better and the show pulled me in more, I wasn't worried about that. And then I learned that they fooled me completely. I thought Werner Herzog's client had an actual working office. It was literally a desk in the middle of the volume. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm worried too much about this technology. So that some of the not acting casting choices, but some of the choices that the actors were maybe part of making in terms of dialogue and everything. It's the way some of them were delivered. Some of the scenes weren't my favorite in terms of just performances, but that's also Star Wars tradition as well. Ask George Lucas, he'll say, oh, you noticed that I intentionally made the prequels to sound a little clunky and stiff because that's the style of the time, and that's what I wanted to put in there, whether you liked it or not. I thought Mandalorian touched on that a little bit, and that doesn't always connect with me right away.
My only complaint, I guess my biggest gripe about Mandalorian, and this is more the nostalgic nerd in me, I love Star Wars because of the bombasticness of the music, and the music in Mandalorian is very well crafted, but I'm just waiting for that, I'm waiting for that hit. Is that a me problem, Jen?
I mean, you could just say these notes, right? Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. That's already iconic, right? So I think Ludwig Göransson's doing I mean, I like it because I think there's moments where it's kind of got this dubstep techno sound to it, and we're seeing blurgs and there's fighting, and it just is so weird, but I like the weird. And there's kind of almost like that disconnect, which I think is something new and fresh for Star Wars. We love John Williams, of course, but
and probably much needed. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do need to go to new horizons, whether it's with characters or with the music. And so I can accept this as something that I'm just going to learn how to cope with.
I love his stuff, and I love that it's unique and it's instantly recognizable. But I do understand what you're saying, Mark. And this isn't against Mandalorian, Ludwig Göransson, or anyone. It's just we're used to sitting in a theater, and then John Williams reaches out, grabs you, slaps you across the face with a fish, and says, "You got the biggest thing in the galaxy coming at you." And sometimes with Mando, it's different. It's a different tone. And I hope with even the other Star Wars shows we're going to get, I hope we sometimes just have that boom, it's Star Wars.
But I will say this about Ludwig: like I appreciate the risk more than I would the comfort food of just going back to what we already know, and that's just more me. But there is never going to be anything within the world of Star Wars that compares to, as Ken so eloquently put it, John Williams punching everybody in a movie theater in the face with it was Williams and a Lucas one too, because Williams got you with the crossover, and then immediately after that done, Lucas gets you with the uppercut of the most gigantic spaceship you've ever seen in your life just coming right over your head. And that's sort of what we're going to talk about as we transition with our own music. Ludwig, if you would. So let's talk about the TV versus movies of this, which everybody loves having this debate now. And I can take my Star Wars in any form. I'm still a purist when it comes to the way that I enjoy seeing these particular stories, and it is in a movie theater. It's in film form, and I think that a lot of that debate, Jen, centers around how maybe you felt about the sequel trilogy, whether you felt like this was still the right format to tell these new stories and introduce all of these new characters, or if it was a little limiting. So you have a lot of folks that say The Mandalorian really set the template for how Star Wars should be going forward. How does this debate land on your shoulders?
I don't think it's fair because, television, The Mandalorian, there's just so much more room to play. You have different directors. They can go to different parts of the galaxy. They can have a little bit more fun with the storylines. I think with the movies, there's just so much more weight to it. There's just so many more expectations of where fans expect these characters to go, what stories they're expecting. They come up with these, theories, myself included, about who Rey is. And then, when we get the theory doesn't come true or whatever it may be. And people get really emotional about that. But I feel like for the TV shows, there's just a little bit more fun to it, if you will. And just like, there's just more room to play, basically.
Biggest difference for me, Ken, when I think about the Star Wars films versus the TV show, particularly The Mandalorian, is that I feel like The Mandalorian has an easier out with ending its tales than Star Wars would. I mean, you obviously see whether you want to think it was a sloppy handoff between J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson and back to J.J., whether it was all premeditated, which I don't think it was, but I still think they pulled it off well. With Mandalorian, it was a great end of a season to see Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 take the child.
Yeah, so you're talking about the end of Mando Season 2, which Favreau said, I just kind of stumbled on in the writing process and didn't plan at all. Yes, you're right. Here's the thing. This is a big conversation. Yeah, again, we're talking about sitting in a theater. Now, I like going to movies less and less because the grumpy beard, but I love going for Star Wars stuff. In fact, I remember watching The Last Jedi next to you, Mark, and we grabbed each other's knees in excitement when that movie started.
Yeah, we did. It was a moment.
It was a moment. It was a moment. So I love that. But Star Wars is also about change and growth and letting go. That's the way of the Jedi. And Clone Wars, George Lucas, that's what his heart was in that. Weekly television where I can take time to go in and kind of guide these wild adventures and do these character studies. That worked, and I think this is the future. I'm so excited for Kenobi. I'm more excited for Andor. I cannot wait to dive into that world anymore. I'm really excited with Leslie Headland's The Acolyte, and we barely even know what's going to come of that. I'm excited for this era. I'm excited to watch Star Wars at home. But the example I'll give is, call this controversial, Solo: A Star Wars Story on Ken Tomatoes, certified fresh 100%, because I love that movie. And I love that movie as this fun, serial adventure, wild origin story that's also a look at oppression in the galaxy and the destruction of the foot of the empire coming down on the people and what it meant and what it meant to find hope in that fear. It's such a good story. It's such a fun story. But it also didn't have the stakes of the galaxy, and you can't deny that. And that's why I think a lot of people at the end of it would no Death Star blew up. If that had been a Disney Plus series, I don't think you would have had those kind of complaints. So I have to be, even maybe against my old Star Wars nature, I have to be open open to these kind of stories, both big and small, on the small screen.
Yeah, I'll still say it's a much bigger risk and endeavor, and it costs more dollars to make a feature film than it would be an episode of a TV show, as Ken alluded to a little bit, Jen, because like I liked Solo's Star Wars story a lot, and I definitely ate at Denny's more that month than I had previously. And then I think about The Mandalorian, and even people who say, oh, this is the way to do Star Wars, is these serial episodic adventures. You get a break there because it's like a new issue of a comic book you love. If this Wednesday you read the new issue and it's a dud, oh, don't worry, there's another one coming out next Wednesday. Whereas if we see a movie and anything bugs us about it, if we say, oh, I didn't like that one scene in The Last Jedi, or I didn't like that he threw the lightsaber away, whatever it was, we have to sit with that for so long that it sort of creeps into our feeling about the overall product. Whereas with Mandalorian or any of these other shows, there's always the next train coming around.
For me, one of my favorite episodes from The Mandalorian is The Prisoner with Bill Burr, and was directed by Rick Famuyiwa. And it's just kind of, it's just like a heist episode, right? With all these weird characters coming together. And it doesn't really have many stakes, so to speak, but it's just great to watch visually, and it's just cool to see these characters and have this like familial relationship between the Twi'leks. But not everyone I see on here, 83% Rotten Tomatoes. I believe it should be 92% at least. So yeah, I just think that there's just more things to consume and more things that you may love as opposed to dislike.
It's too big of a question that I'm going to leave you all with here today if we were going to get into who should be the caretakers of Star Wars going forward, because I like this collective unit that is started with Favreau and Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy doing a lot of producing work with the films and just making it more of a Pixar-style collective of ideas as opposed to just one figurehead. I think it's too much on any one person. But if I just ask you all, what is that streaming show in the world of Star Wars that's coming out? And I'm going to do I love doing this on my show Versus on Peacock, is, okay, I'm going to give you a TV and you can only watch one of these new Star Wars shows coming up. Are you taking Mandalorian Season 3? Are you going to go Book of Boba Fett? Are you going to go the Cassian Andor show? Are you going to go the Obi-Wan show? Is there another show I'm missing? Start with you, Ken. Which show is Ken putting on, well, for you, probably your phone in a Phoenix airport?
Wow, that's tough. And yeah, Acolyte, Ahsoka is tough. Kenobi, I've been waiting for the Kenobi thing for a long time. It was going to be a great movie. Now it's going to be a better show. I'm gonna go with my heart. I'm gonna go with Andor. Diego Luna as Cassian Andor. There's so much there. Again, because my favorite era is the 19 years between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope. I'm obsessed with that era. I'm obsessed about the rebellion against the Empire, hope versus fear, light versus dark, and the Force emerges in other ways in these stories. I'm so obsessed with these little details of Andor as a character who grew up as a separatist. His family was a separatist. That's why he doesn't like or trust the Jedi, like or trust the Force, who has to do all these horrible things in the name of good. At the end of Rogue One, he's like, I just want all those horrible things I did to mean something and have purpose. Mm-hmm. That's where he ends up. Now we get to go experience that, and it's maybe a spy thriller in Star Wars. Yeah, I'm going to watch that one.
Jen, Ken took Cassian Andor. You can take that as well, but you only have one TV. What are you putting on it?
The Book of Boba Fett. Absolutely. Because, like I said, I did not care for Boba Fett. In fact, I was vehemently saying, I don't want to see any Boba Fett movie or any Boba Fett show. And now I'm like, I can't wait for this. This is all I want. And the trailer was a little bit more subdued than I thought it would be, which I appreciate because we all know that Robert Rodriguez can go action-packed, right? So yep. I'm excited because I'm also hopeful that we might see Ewoks. Somebody's got to bring them back. I don't know who it's going to be, but whoever it is, God bless you.
We kind of treat them like the Ghostbusters after the first movie. Like they saved the city and then now they're just doing kids' birthday parties. No, these are the Ewoks. These are legends. They should have statues in every city where the rebellion, where the alliance, where the good side of the Force is celebrated. So we got to vote for the Book of Boba Fett. We got to vote for Cassian Andor. I am so excited for the Obi-Wan show. I am apprehensive a little bit about how much they're leaning on Darth Vader, if that's going to be just more of the nostalgic tones or if it's actually going to be doing service to the story. But then if it serves the story too much, then it makes that fight that we see them have in A New Hope a little less impactful, for me anyway. But again, that's just me and all the baggage from 40 plus years of watching Star Wars that I bring to the table. So I'm just going to go Mandalorian Season 3. That's what I want. Give me more adventures in here. Give me more of my friends popping up. Give me more new characters to enjoy. Give me more of these serialized Western shows like I'm watching High Noon again. That's what I want. Mando Season 3. 3 different takes from Star Wars fans. And look at that. We didn't come to blows. At least we almost came to blows a couple times, but we resolved our differences here on the show. Thank you both so much for blessing us with your ForceCenter knowledge, your prowess. Joseph Scrimshaw would have loved to have been here, but he was busy taking a sunset photo of a martini, which if you don't follow Joseph Scrimshaw on Instagram, it's like a binary sunset looking at that guy take pictures of alcoholic drinks at the perfect time of day. Jen Landa, you made a sterling debut on this show. I would love to have you back talking movies outside of the Star Wars universe. You're always welcome in our little cantina. Where can everybody out there find you and celebrate all the good that you're doing in and out of the world of Star Wars?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Jennifer Landa. 1138 on TikTok, but normally just at Jennifer Landa, just me. And also StarWars.com, where I share my thoughts on Salacious B. Crumb.
That's another one of the great characters from Return of the Jedi. Well, your partner in crime there, someone who did spend some time after a misdemeanor felony in cell block 1138, Ken Napzok. Where can all the kids find you when you're not slinging the yucks or working down at the docks?
Yeah, working down at the docks, getting more jokes for those yuck shows. Yeah, just go to kennapzok.com to find all the things I do. I have a Game of Thrones podcast. We have the wonderful ForceCenter podcast, on which Jennifer, for years, convinced me to have a new appreciation for the Ewoks. My love of the Ewoks comes from Jennifer's passion for the Ewoks, so all credit to her. And then I got a new thing. I got a book, of course, Why We Love Star Wars. That's available. Got a new radio show called Pop Rockin' Radio. Real proud of that. Talking music, a little Rolling Stones every now and then, Mark. So look for Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud.
Ken and I had a very good time at the Rolling Stones show. That is going to do it for us today. Once again, you can email us anytime with your thoughts. What TV shows, what movies do you want us to talk about on upcoming episodes of Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong? RT is wrong at RottenTomatoes.com. Wherever you enjoy listening to us, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else, whatever that platform encourages you to do, I echo that sentiment. Rate, review, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, Producer Lucy, Brian Perez, our esteemed guests, Jen and Ken. For Jacqueline Coley, who's working much harder than I am right now, I am merely Mark Ellis at Mark Ellis Live, and we'll see you next week on Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong.